It's becoming clear that people like you, Simon, they're a certain type of character, certain type of people to want to test yourself to the extreme. It's more than a hobby. It's not enough to be committed. You have to give everything to reach the top. But of course, there is a price, and we're going to hear about that price now, because you may not have heard of this man called Fred Beckey, but in the mountaineering community, he's renowned for the number of first ascents he's achieved and his willingness to sacrifice absolutely everything to reach the summit. There's a film about him now. He's 94 years old, and the film is called Dirtbag, The Legend of Fred Beckey. It's just been released, and I've been speaking to the producer-director, Dave Olesk.
His name is everywhere. He was there before the rest of us were.
The guy knows more about the mountains of North America than anyone that's ever lived.
Just one-track mind most of the time. If it wasn't on women, it was on climbing.
Fred was lively and addictive. There's some sort of magnetism there.
What's his greatest achievement then? What's his most remarkable achievement?
Probably just the sheer number of first ascents that he's done. You know, it's argued that, you know, he's done more big first ascents of mountains and climbs than anyone else, and purely in the sense of numbers, because once a first ascent's done, they can't be done again. So he's done something that can't be repeated.
Fred chose this other lifestyle.
He created his own culture. He became a culture of one. It's a grandfather of the road trip.
I love the title of your film, Dirtbag. Just explain why you use that word when it comes to Fred.
Dirtbag it's almost like a culture that Fred accidentally created. He didn't want to be tied down with relationships. He didn't want to be tied down with, you know, a job or a career. Stability wasn't something that mattered to him. It was more about a means to an end. So he lived a very simple life in order to achieve what he wanted, which was to be in the mountains as much as possible. In order to do that, he just sort of lived in the dirt. He traveled, did road trips in his car, and slept on the side of the highway, and that was fine to him. It wasn't something that he set out to do. It's just the way that he was able to spend as much time in the mountains. And so when I say he accidentally created a culture, it's really true, because he didn't realize what he was doing was something that people would follow. Today, at least in, you know, the United States climbing scene, you know, you have tons of people that are, you know, living out of their cars and, you know, staying in places, you know, campsites for months on end just to climb. And I think they're all following in Fred's footsteps.
And what's this slogan on a T-shirt, linked to Fred? Tell me about that, because that sums him up as well, doesn't it? He's well known amongst many climbers for his reputation, and there's a T-shirt that sums it up.
The T-shirt, he'll steal your climbs and he'll steal your women.
That's
Is that
it.
the one?
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, he was as enthusiastic about women as he was about climbing. I think actually climbing maybe trumped the women a little bit, but you know, he never married, and he never really settled down, and I think that's a testament to his, you know, not wanting to be tied down to anything, so that he could actually be in the mountains as much as possible. And yeah, he was known as quite the womanizer for sure. You know, there's stories of him coming off of climbs and with a group of guys or whatever, and stopping and making a phone call in some remote town, and ending up calling one of his girlfriends and making his buddies wait a few hours before they continued on.
He sounds like a very difficult person to get on with.
He's got this obsessive compulsive nature. He probably would have succeeded at whatever he chose to do, because he was so obsessively compulsed about what he was focused on.
Right now, I don't know what I'm doing except tomorrow. I have no idea.
He's still going, isn't he? At 94 years old, he's still climbing.
He's still trying. You know, we spent some time with him last fall in Squamish, British Columbia, and filmed him climbing a number of routes. And he's, and I've been saying this for years, is he climbs better than he walks. His body is taken its toll from many years of carrying heavy packs and just the harshness of being in the mountains and stuff. But he has this sort of muscle memory that is amazing to see. Once he gets on a rock climb, he's graceful and he's in his element. Mentally, he still wants to do all these things, but physically, he's having a tougher time just because his body can't keep up with his mind.
Fred was only focused on climbing, and he never felt sorry for you if your climbing ended up in a divorce.
Totally obsessive. That's who Fred is. You know, obsessive behavior can lead to absolute genius.
From the get-go, I didn't want to just make a climbing film. Fred is just such an eccentric, interesting character that I wanted it to be more of a character portrait. And what happened in the process of making the film, which ended up taking longer than I had anticipated, was there was a blessing in the fact that we were able to document Fred from the age of 83 to 93. And so that put in a human element of aging into the film and just what that means. And, you know, that was important to me to be able to have an element like that an audience could relate to outside of the climbing world. You know, everyone's got to think about what it's like to get older, whether it's, you know, for yourself or your parents or friends. And so it's a really interesting side of the film is just to kind of watch Fred dealing with that.
His contemporaries, they founded companies, they were like movie stars for a while. That was, to me, has been one of the great mysteries. Why did the best climber of all never go on to the greatness that they all did?
You obviously really admire him, Dave, but did you end up liking him by the end of making the film?
Yeah, you know, I did. I do admire Fred and his tenacity, and, you know, it was difficult. We had our ups and downs over the course of the process of, you know, it was a 12-year process from the time that I actually pitched him the idea of making the movie to the time it screened in the theater. So I've spent a lot of time with Fred, been to China with him twice. I've been on, you know, all over North America with him on road trips, just he and I. And I think you really get to see someone's personality in those kind of situations. And yeah, we get along well. We've become good friends. And, you know, now that he's actually seen the movie and seen the fact that we made a good movie about his life, he's happy and he's in a good place. So that's something I can be proud of for sure.
He's a dirtbag. And because of that, I don't think he'll get the recognition that he really deserves.
94 years old and still climbing. One of the many incredible people that we're meeting in this extreme sports special on Sportsworld. Simon Parker is my guest throughout the programme. We've been hearing about all his adventures as well. We'll hear about more in just a moment. But we heard there, Simon, that being so extreme, it cost Fred a lot in his life.